timeless Vedic text Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so then, so what is Gita? Gita is thousands of years older than even the Dead Sea Scrolls. Then it provides the most complete explanation of reincarnation available anywhere. So it has been studied for millennia by many of the world's greatest thinkers. And since spiritual knowledge is eternally true and does not change with each new scientific theory, it is still relevant today. Uh, so, then it is imperative. It is we should understand in this age the real origin of our conscious selves and how we find ourselves in different bodies and conditions of life and what our destinations will be at the time of death. Then and this essential information is there in this book. So this is what Prabhupada said in the introduction chapters. So there are 8 chapters in this book. The first chapter, that is reincarnation, that is the Socrates to Salinger. That is how the reincarnation thought of reincarnation has, developed or from ancient age to modern age. That Prabhupada is describing in this first chapter. Then in the ancient age also, this reincarnation, the first this chapter Prabhupada is starting with the quotes from Bhagavad Gita, that is 2.20, that is Najayate Mriyate Va Kadachi Nayam Hutva Bhavita Va Napoyaha Ajo Nitya Shashatoyam Purano Nahanyate Hanyamane Shariri. That is, for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So it's about the Krishna is talking to Arjuna about the soul. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada had started this chapter with this quote, and then he explained how reincarnation has profoundly influenced many of the world's greatest philosophers, poets, and artists from Socrates, that is from ancient age to modern age. Okay. So then he has quoted that what Socrates said at the end of his life, that I am confident that there truly is such a thing as living again, and that the living spring from the dead. So uh, this Socrates is talking about reincarnation after death, what will happen. Then Pythagoras, he claimed that he could remember his past lives. Then Plato presented detailed accounts of reincarnation. So here, actually, if you see that Plato's teachings, he held that the pure soul falls from the plane of absolute reality because of sensual desire and then takes on a physical body. First, the fallen souls take birth in human forms, the highest of which is that of the philosopher who strives for higher knowledge. If his knowledge becomes perfect, then the philosopher can return to eternal existence. But if he becomes hopelessly entangled in material desires, he descends into an animal species of life. Plato believed that gluttons and drunkards may become asses in future lives. Violent and unjust people may take birth as wolves and hogs, and the blind followers of social convention may become bees or ants. After some time, the soul again attains the human form and another chance to achieve liberation, and this cycle goes on. So, if you see that most of these beliefs is exactly matching with Bhagavad Gita, so it was presumed that Plato had got his information from the Hindu scriptures. Uh, then in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, they are all talking about, there are hints of reincarnation. So then in the Bible also there are many passages indicating that Christ and his followers were aware of the principle of reincarnation. And in the Quran says, and you were dead and he brought you back to life. and he shall cause you to die, and shall bring you back to life, and in the end shall gather you unto himself. So all these major Western religions, this Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they have the definite threats of reincarnation throughout in their teachings. Okay, so even though the official custodians now ignore the Neda. So, then in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, Prabhupada is talking quite a lot about this. This in the during the Middle Ages and Renaissance period, what happened? See in the 553 AD, one emperor that Byzantine, he banned all the teachings of pre-existence of the soul from the Roman Catholic Church, and due to which their scriptures of reincarnations were all destroyed. Then during the Renaissance period, the people started, coming out of the clutches of the church, and they started thinking about this soul and reincarnation. So then Italy's leading philosopher and poet, that Giordano Bruno, proclaimed that the soul is not the body, and that it may be the one body in one body or in another, and pass from body to body. Then in the Enlightenment period in the age, then European intellectuals began to free themselves from the church censorship, and they started learning about this reincarnation and soul. And if you see that several of America's previous presidents like Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, they all have this. They accepted this idea of reincarnation. So they were actually in those times. The John Adams, especially, he was following the scriptures of our Indian culture. Then in then interest in reincarnation and Indian philosophy also ran strong among American transcendentalists, then including Emerson, Whiteman, Thoreau, etc. So the Emerson quoted that the soul is not born, it does not die, and it was not produced from anyone, unborn and eternal, and it is not slain, though the body is slain. So in Charles Dickens also, he explained in his one of his novels, that David Copperfield. So he's saying, he's talking about the deja vu, that is, if we all have some experiences or a feeling that come over us sometimes, that we are saying or doing this what we are doing, and it was already we have been done, or it has already happened to us some time ago. So that feeling is there. That is called deja vu. Then in modern age, then the 20th century also, we find this idea of reincarnation attracting the mind of many poets, artists, philosophers, scientists, and even politicians. Okay, so then even US auto magnate Henry Ford, he said, I adopted the theory of reincarnation and when I was only 26. And genius is experience. Some seem to think that it is a gift or talent, but it is the fruit of long experience in many lives. So even British biologist Thomas Huxley said that doctrine of transmigration, it was a means of constructing a plausible vindication of the ways of the cosmos to man. Then Mahatma Gandhi, he also believed in the reincarnation. He said that I cannot think of permanent enmity between man, and believing as I do in the theory of rebirth, I live in the hope that if not in this birth, in some other birth, I shall be able to hug all of humanity in a friendly embrace. Okay, so then the Salinger, who is a very famous story writer, he in his books, I mean his short stories, he's introduced a character called Teddy, and he was saying that character, it is so silly. All you do is get the heck out of your body when you die. My gosh, everybody is done it thousands of times. Just because they don't remember, it doesn't mean they haven't done it. So all these things with this, Prabhupada is saying that there was a thinking of reincarnation from uh, time immemorial, from the ancient age till the recent our current age. People are having this thought of reincarnation. So then Prabhupada explains this concept through Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, which is the most fundamental information about reincarnation, this appears in Bhagavad Gita, the essence of Upanishads and all the Vedic knowledge. So here in 2.12, Krishna is saying to Arjuna that never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, not all these kings, nor in the future. Yeah, shall any of us cease to be? So here it's Krishna, he himself is saying that he was existing. Not only him, the Arjuna is also existing in time immemorial. So how it is? It is the clear indication of reincarnation. So then Gita further he instructs that Krishna instructs that which pervades the entire body, you should now to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. So the soul here we are speaking of something so subtle that it is not immediately verifiable by the limited human mind and senses. Therefore, not everyone will be able to accept the existence of the soul. So uh, so it is Prabhupada is saying that so it is impossible to understand reincarnation unless one knows the difference between the actual self, that is the soul and the body. So then Gita, that is where the Gita comes. The Gita helps us see the nature of the soul by the following example, that is, as the sun alone illuminates all the universe, like that our living entity one within the body that illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So consciousness is concrete evidence of the presence of the soul within the body. That is, Prabhupada gives an analogy of sun in a cloudy day. Even though in a cloudy day we will not able to see the sun, but we still know that sun is there. Same way, even though we cannot see the soul or we cannot, directly touch it or through our sense organs, but we still can understand that soul is present through by having the consciousness. So Prabhupada further explains that in Bhagavad Gita 2.20, so for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. That he has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain, and when the body is slain. So this is Bhagavad Gita 2.20. So within his lifetime, a person can observe that his body is constantly changing. Prabhupada explains that even within the body, there is reincarnation is happening because the body is keep changing from boyhood, then from adult, then the old age. So bodies keep changing. So it is not the same body we are having throughout our life. So despite all the changes of this material body, consciousness, that is a symptom of the soul within, that remains unchanged. Okay, so that's what it meant of the eternal, there is no change. Then Krishna tells Arjuna, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. It's not slain when the body is slain. But if the soul is not slain when the body is slain, then what becomes of it? That was the question. That answer was given in the Bhagavad Gita, that the soul enters another body. So this is reincarnation. So Gita gives logical examples to aid our understanding of this concept. Then man reincarnates even in the course of one lifetime, yet despite bodily changes, the person within remains the same. Similarly, the self undergoes a final change of body. Gita says, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless one. So, according to the desires, the living entities perpetually take birth in these species. So, there are 8 lakh 84 lakh species are there. So once according to one's desires, they can take the birth in any one of the bodies of in these species. Then Gita explains that whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail in his next life. So that is 8.6. That whatever state of being that it is showing the picture of Bharata Maharaj. So at the time of his leaving the body, he was, even though he was a self-realized soul, but at the time of leaving the body, he was thinking of the deer. So he had to take the body of a deer in his next life. So that's what Gita says. And everything we have thought and done during our life makes an impression on the mind, and the sum total of all these impressions influences our final thoughts. So, according to the quality of these thoughts, material nature awards us a suitable body. So, therefore, the type of body that we have now is the expression of our consciousness at the time of our last death. So, how a body is being selected, that's what Prabhupada is explaining by quoting the Gita. So, it is all what our thinkings or what our thoughts at the time of death, which will come based on our experiences and the quality of life and the thoughts which we have been doing throughout our current life. So at the time what we are thinking, that the same body or based on that desire we'll get another body in the next life. So further, the path of reincarnation does not always lead uphill. That means it will not that go up, up, up. It doesn't mean like that. So if one dies with the mentality of a dog, then he will in his next life receive the eyes, ears, nose, etc. of a dog. He gets the body of a dog, thus allowing him to enjoy that canine pleasures. So then Lord Krishna confirms the fate of such an unfortunate soul, saying, when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. So that's what Krishna says, that one, whatever be the mode of in the mode in which we are living our body. So one who lives the body in the mode of sattvic, then they may go to the planet of demigods. Then in Rajoguna, then either maybe in the either be in the human form or in the animal form. Tamoguna means they will be born in the as a in the animal kingdom. So our Prabhupada says our existence in the material world is due to the multiple karmic reactions of these previous lives, and the human body provides the only loophole through which the materially conditioned soul can escape. So that is the human body is the only body through which we can escape this loop, that is the loop of repeated birth and death. That but for any other form, any other body, we will not be able to do it because they don't have the knowledge. They cannot have that knowledge. Only for a human form you can have the intelligence and knowledge to understand and have the realization. So then Prabhupada saying that we have to properly utilizing the human form and can solve all the problems of life, that is birth, death, disease and old age, and break the endless cycle of reincarnation. So then if however a soul having evolved to the human platform waste his life by engaging only in activities for sense pleasure, he can easily create sufficient karma in this present life to keep him entangled in the cycle of birth and death, then for thousands and thousands of lives. So that is what will happen if we waste our life. So that's why he strongly recommends in this that a soul fortunate enough to obtain a human body should seriously endeavor for self-realization, to understand the principles of reincarnation and become free from repeated birth and death. And we can't afford not to do this. So in this chapter, first chapter, actually it contains the basic principle how to the reincarnation, what to do, how to do to come out of it. Uh, Everything has explained in the first chapter. Then in the second chapter, Prabhupada further explains about the changing of bodies. Okay? And this chapter is about it is about a dialogue between His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and a noted religious psychologist, Professor Alfred Graf von Durkheim. He's a German. That clearly shows how the material body and the anti-material particles, that is the spirit soul, can never be the same. Okay, so here actually Prabhupada uses the analogy of a microphone. He's saying that in the microphone, if there is no electrical energy passing through it, even if it, I mean, in the general sense, it is in a working condition, still it cannot work. I mean, it cannot give any sound or anything. So it is as good as having a dead. So same thing for our body. If there is no consciousness, that is, there is no soul, even if the body parts, everything is in working condition, still it is a dead body. Okay, so the dead body is not the real subject for philosophical inquiry. Rather, we should concern ourselves with the active principle. Which is the active principle? That is the soul. That is the one which we should study, not about the dead body. Okay, so in Bhagavad Gita 2.11, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So here Krishna is saying the wastage of lamenting for the body. So he's saying that we should be, that is not worthy of our grief. The lamenting for the dead body, for the dead is not worthy. Okay. So then Professor Durkheim, I don't know the correct pronunciation of his name, sorry, asked, how do you teach your disciples to become aware of this force, which is not matter, but which makes matter appear alive? So how do you make them understand? That's what the professor is asking to Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada is answering how to perceive the soul. Srila Prabhupada answers that the student of Vedic philosophy is first taught to distinguish the difference between a living body and a dead one. So that is very easy to, that is a very easy concept, that the body is changing and moving because of the presence of the active principle, that is the soul. So, and if there is no soul, then the body neither changes nor moves. So the body is always dead. So it is like a big machine, that is a tape recorder. Only if it is, there is a electricity passing through it, then only it will work. Even otherwise, even if you push or pull or whatever the switches you on or off, it will not work. So same thing for human body also. If there is no soul present, uh, even if you call 1,000 times, the body will not move. So that is very easy to understand. So first he'll make his disciples to understand this concept of a dead body and body having a consciousness or a soul. Then professor asked, my real question is, how do we become aware of the active principle within ourselves as a direct experience and not simply as an intellectual conclusion? That's what is it. How do we experience it? Experience the soul. That's what here the professor, his question is. Uh, then for that, Srila Prabhupada asked, you yourself are the active principle. Okay, it is not that it is something else is the soul. You are the soul. That is Aham Brahmasmi. I am not this material body. I am Brahman, the spirit. This is the self-realization. So the self-realized person sees all living entities with equal vision, knowing that the active principle, that is the self, is present not only in human beings but within the bodies of animals, birds, fish, uh, plants, etc. So then Srila Prabhupada explains that body is like a dream. So see, when we dream, we act in different bodies, and we dream that we are going in different locations. So, and during when we wake up, we forget about these dream bodies, and at night we forget while sleeping. We forget about our material body, and we are having different bodies in the dream. So uh, but we remain aware of our existence in both bodies, whether it is a dream body or our material body. We know that it is us. So in our dream also it is us only, and it is we are dreaming. So therefore we must conclude that we are not in any of these bodies. So that is we are the self. It is different from the body. Okay, the self is different from all of these bodies. That is self-realization. Okay. So then Prabhupada quoted is 3.42 that Indriyani Parani Ahur Indriyebhya Param Manaha Manasastu Param Buddhir Yo Buddhe Parastastu Saha. That is, the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and the soul, the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So that is uh, uh, that dull matter is our body, that is made of material matters. So that our sense is superior to our body, and mind is even higher than the senses. Intelligence is higher than the mind, and the soul is the highest of all. Okay. So further to this, Srila Prabhupada said that the pure consciousness, the soul, does not need a material body. So it can exist even without a body. That is, he gives an example that when you dream, we forget our present body, but we are still conscious, and we are still moving, we are still traveling, we are still in our dream, we are talking. So the consciousness doesn't need a body to do all these things. So it can exist even without a body. So that everyone knows that I am not this body, and this is real knowledge, and that can be experienced by hearing from a bona fide authority, that is, who had heard this knowledge through disciplic succession. So that was the goal of human life, that is the self-realization. And only in human body this can be realized, not in any other body. So so after establishing all these things, there is that the conscious self and the body are separate entities. Then Srila Prabhupada further describes how the conscious self or the soul perpetually transmigrates to another body at the time of death. So that is what it is about, the changing of bodies or having different bodies. So Prabhupada explains these things in this. Then the next chapter is the soul research. It is a letter by the Srila Prabhupada to one of the very world famous world surgeon, who put uh, this question that the heart surgeon is Wilfred G. Bigelow. He asked he posted a question to determine what the soul is and where it comes from. Okay, so in his profession, he had seen that many deaths. He had seen many deaths, and a life also. He did so many surgeries. So he realized that at the time of death, something goes out of the body. What it is, some luster as going out of the eyes of from the eyes of the patient. for the man. So he wants to know what it is, what that soul is, and where it comes from, where it is situated, how do we find it. So that was the question he posted it. So when Srila Prabhupada saw this question, he wrote a letter by quoting the Vedic versions to answer his questions. So Srila Prabhupada said that thousands of years older, and strikingly, he quoted the Vedic version, which are thousands of years older, and they are strikingly more informative than modern medical science. So the explanation which modern medical science could give on this, it is far below than what is there in our Vedic scriptures. The answer to that question. So then Srila Prabhupada presents that substantial Vedic evidence about the science of the soul and suggests a practical method for scientifically understanding this spiritual spark that gives the body life and makes reincarnation a reality. So then Srila Prabhupada wrote to Dr. Bigelow that the soul is present in the heart of the living entity, and it is the source of all the energies which maintain the body. This energy of the soul is spread all over the body, and this is known as consciousness. Since this consciousness spreads the energy of the soul all over the body, one feels pains and pleasures in every part of the body. The soul is individual and he transmigrates from one body to another, just as a person transmigrates from boyhood to youth and then to advanced old age. So death takes place when we change to a new body, just as we change from our old dress to a new dress. This is called transmigration of the soul. So he wrote, he gave an answer, what is soul and where it is located. And he gave that example that even in the case of a heart transplantation, unless there is no guarantee that it is going to be a success, that the patient is going to live after a heart transplantation. So how do you define the success? That unless the recipient's soul enters into the transplanted heart, then there is no success. Unless it enters, and if the soul doesn't enter, then there is no success. The body will remain dead only. So same thing for in sexual intercourse also. If there is no soul enter into the semen or whatever it is, then there is no conception or there is no pregnancy. So for that also, the soul has to enter into the womb of a woman. Only then it will the pregnancy will happen. Same thing for the heart also. The soul has to enter. So but how do you see that the soul's presence can be accepted on circumstantial understanding only. Therefore, you will not able to. You will find in the Vedic literature that the dimensions of the soul is only one in 10,000 the size of a point of a tip of a hair. So you will not able to see the soul inside you. Therefore, it is for the material scientist, it is not possible for the material scientist to capture the soul. So when one understands the existence of the soul, then he can immediately understand the existence of the God. So here Prabhupada is giving the difference between the God and the soul. That is that God is very great soul, that is Paramatma, and the living entity is a very small soul, but qualitatively they are equal. So that originally the soul, every soul, it comes from the God. That is all the souls are part and parcels of the God. uh, just as the analogy he gave is the spark that comes from the fire, so that appears to be extinguished when it falls away from the fire. But that spark, it can this spark of soul is originally it is from the spiritual world, and when it falls into the material world, that is what he gave, that the spark coming out of the fire. So what will happen to that spark? That when it, even though it appears that it is extinguished, but it depends on the ground in which the spark falls. So uh, if it falls on the some fairy material, it can again uh, it can again work, but it cannot display its fairy manifestation uh, unless there is a combustible material are present. If it falls on a water, then it will get extinguished. Same way for our soul also, it is also falling into the three kinds of living conditions. So, like three modes of nature. That is, if the living entity is completely forgettable of his spiritual nature, that is when it falls into the tamasic gun. Then if another is almost forgetful but still has an instinct of spiritual nature, that is if it falls in the rajoguna. And then another is completely in search of spiritual perfection, if the soul falls into the mode of goodness. So, so depending upon the which mode the soul is falling into, from there it develops or it extinguishes. So there is a bona fide method for the attainment of spiritual perfection by the spiritual spark of soul, and if he is properly guided, it is very easy for him to go back to Godhead, from where he originally falls. Okay, so this is what he gave as a answer to the question. Um, this then the fourth chapter, he explains the histories of reincarnation by quoting the three stories from Bhagavata. So from Bhagavatam itself, from there in that is which is 5,000 years old. From that teachings, there are three stories in which Prabhupada explains, where it deals with the reincarnation, where it explains the process of or the philosophy of reincarnation. The first story is the prince with a million mothers. That is, it is about the Chitraketu's son. He who reveals his previous birth and instructs the king and the queen about the imperishable nature of the soul and the science of reincarnation. So I don't know whether I should tell the story. So it is about King Chitraketu who had thousands of wives, but who never but he was not blessed with any children. Um, and so that is once so he was very much lamented for that he didn't have any son. So one day the mystic sage uh, Angira came to his place, and he asked, "What is why you are so anxious, and have you achieved your desired goals?" Then King said that I don't have King Angira, I don't have any sons, so for that I'm very much worried. So Angira was very merciful that he agreed to help the king, and he performed an yajna, and he selected one of his queen that is the most perfect queen, that Krita Duty. And he blessed that, "Oh great king, you will now have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation and lamentation." Like that, he gave the blessings. So King Angira was very much perplexed why the Angira got blessed like this. He thought that okay, jubilation, he can understand that he's going to get a son, so definitely there is going to be the jubilation. But lamentation, why there is lamentation? So he thought that maybe that he's going to have only one son, maybe he might become the proud, because he's the prince, he's the heir to the throne, so he may become the proud and disobedient. Maybe because of that will create a lamentation for the father, no? So then he still, but still it is having a son is better than having no having, even if it is a proud or disobedient son, having a son is far better than having no son. Like that he thought. So then Kritadyuti, she got a son, and everybody was very happy. And the king was now more attached to his queen, that Kritadyuti, than which had made the other queens very envious. So because of their envy and anger, they decided to poison the child, and they did that. So and the child died. So when the king heard that, he was very much lamenting. He felt unconscious, and both the parents were very much crying. So that time, Angira and Narada, they came over there, and Angira had asked the king, "Why are you lamenting like this? What relationship now you have with that dead body? So you may say that he's your son, but do you think that this relationship existed before his birth? So does it truly exist now, or that he's now dead?" So like that, Angira was chastising the king. Then Narada Muni, what he did was, through his mystic power, he allowed the soul to again re-enter into the body of the prince, that baby. So then the boy got up from the bed, and then he started giving the teachings, that is, teachings of Chitraketu's son. So he said that, according to the results of my material activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of lower animals, sometimes incarnating among the vegetables and appearing sometimes in the human species. So, in which birth were these two people my father and mother? No one is actually my father and mother. I have had millions of so called parents. How can I accept these two people as my father and mother? Okay, so then he talked that the living entity, as a result of his karma, wanders throughout the universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life through the semen of one father after another. And the living entity is eternal and imperishable. He has no beginning and no end, nor does he take birth or die. The living being is equal in quality to the Supreme Lord. Both are spiritual personalities, because the living entity is so small, he is prone to be illusioned by the material energy, and thus he creates bodies for himself according to his different desires and activities. So he gave all these teachings, and then the king Chitraketu and the queen, they understood, they realized, they got the knowledge from their son. So then once it was done, Narada take out the soul again, and then the queen and the king, they will, uh, after fully cognizant of spiritual knowledge and including the sense of reincarnation, they easily gave up the affection to their dead son, and they did the final rituals for their son. Okay, so here that Chatraketu's son is also, through his teachings, he clearly stated the reincarnation, that is, the rebirth of the soul, the soul changing the bodies. Okay, the second narration is about King Bharata. Okay, so uh, he was a very wise and experienced Maharaja, and one might have thought that he would rule hundreds of years. But while in the prime of his life itself, he renounced everything, his queen, family, and empire, and went to the forest. And there, um, see there, what he did, he was doing all the tapasya austerities, and he has the knowledge. But one day, what happened? He was in a place called Pulaha Ashrama in the foothills of Himalayas, and he was alone in the forest along the bank of Gandaki River. So he was wearing a deer skin garment. His hair and beard grew long and matted and always appeared wet. So, uh, so while he was doing the constant meditation upon the personality of Godhead, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he began to experience symptoms of spiritual ecstasy. That he was going into the bhakti mode. So then, one day he saw a deer, and a pregnant deer, and it was killed by a tiger. So he saw that, and that deer, when after getting injured, it went into a cave, and there it gave birth to a fawn, and then it died. Okay, so then Bharata, he see everything as same because he is a self-realized. So he took care of that baby deer, and he started bringing it up. So then King Bharata got attached. Gradually then he became neglectful for his meditation upon the Supreme Lord, because every time he started thinking of his deer, and he's thinking that as though it is his son. So he got that attachment to the deer. So one day he couldn't find the deer, and he started worrying. He's not even able to concentrate on his prayers, uh, meditation. So he started searching. While searching, he fall into a cave, and he got injured very severely. So there, he saw that while lying there at the point of death, he saw that his deer had suddenly appeared and was sitting at his side. So, and then watching over him just like a loving son. Then, at the moment of his death, the king's mind was focused completely on the deer. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, we learn that whatever the state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So, even though he is a self-realized soul, at the time of his death, King Bharata was thinking of a deer rather than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, what happened to them? Then King Bharata, in the next birth, he got the body of a deer. So, he entered the body of a deer because of the spiritual progress the king had made in his previous incarnation. He could uh, he could remember and understand the cause of his taking birth in that body. So what he did, so even as a deer, he's learned the valuable lesson. He was able to continue his progress in self-realization. So he left everything. He will not even eat uh, uh, green grass and all. He eat only dry leaves. He went to the same place where King Bharata was there. They went there and he started meditating, even in the deer form. So at the time of he just leave the body, he offered obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and praying to perpetually engage in his transcendental loving service. So then King Bharata, he got another body. So in his next life, that is in the life of Jada Bharata, he took birth in the family of a saintly Brahmana priest and was known as Jada Bharata. So again, by Lord's mercy, he could again remember his past lives. So, but he was, because he remember, he knows about his past lives, what is his purpose, everything since he knows. He was constantly feared that by the influence of his materialistic friends and relatives, he would again fall down into the animal life. So what he did, he behaved like a dull and a brainless man. He acted like a very dumb man. So his father tried to teach him the Vedic scriptures and everything, but he acted, even though he knows everything, he acted as though he doesn't know anything. So after his father left his body, he was under the protection of his step brothers, who never valued him, because they all considered himself as a very dumb person. Okay, so whatever they gave, he eat whatever they gave, but he never complains, because he's a completely liberated from the bodily concept. So whatever they give only, even if it is very bad and very rotten food, even if they give, he will not complain. So his body actually was very strong, and it looks like a very bull, like very muscular. So he will be put into the work of labor, but that also he will not do properly. So everybody, nobody is happy with him. So one day, a band of thieves, they wanted to give a human sacrifice to Bhadrakali for their material benefit, but it was not there. That human sacrifice, it was never mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, but they were doing it. But that person to whom they brought, that person escaped, so they were searching for another person. So then they saw the Jadabharata, then they brought him for the sacrifice. So they gave him food, they bathed him, gave him food and dress and everything, and they brought him. But Jadabharata knows that why they are bringing him, but he never objected. But the goddess Durga, when she saw that such a self-realized, such a pious soul, they brought for killing or giving as a sacrifice, she got angry, and she killed all these bands of thieves. Okay, then mm, then one day, so Jadabharata instructs the king Rahugana. Okay, so one day that was King Rahugana was being carried through the district on a palanquin, resting on the shoulders of several servants. So they were very tired. So they were searching for another person to carry. So they saw Jadabharata, who is very strong, who looks very strong. So they brought him to carry the palanquin. But he was a self-realized soul. He see everything in all the living entities. He saw the God. So he was walking in such a way that he doesn't want to kill even the ants by even by mistake. So he was making, so it was not, the palanquin was not going properly. So king got very angry. Okay, so then he um, uh, he then he king was very angry, and he asked, why you are doing this? Can you carry this thing properly? Why is my palanquin shaking like this? Then the other servants, they told that it is because of Jadabharata. So uh, but he called he they said king then king started chastising him very angrily. So for that again he was doing the same thing. So then he again, the king shouted at him. Then he called him, you rascal, what are you doing? Don't you know that I am your master? For your disobedience I shall now punish you. So that time Jadabharata has given answered that, my dear king, that my body may be fat or thin or weak or strong, but no learned man would say such things about the real self within. As far as my soul is concerned, it is neither fat nor skinny. Only the body is the one which is fat or skin. Just as the waves of the ocean bring pieces of straw together and then break them apart, the force of eternal time brings living entities together in temporary relationships, such as master and servant, and then breaks them apart and rearranges them. So, in any case, who is master and who is servant? Everyone is forced to act by the laws of material nature. Therefore, no one is master and no one is servant. So, when King Raghunath heard this, he was very much astonished that Jadabharata could talk like this. So then he understood that this is a saintly person, and then king quickly descended from his palanquin and offered his obeisances and requested for spiritual knowledge. So here Prabhupada is saying that the King Raghunath's behavior is exemplary. Why? Because the Vedas declare that to everyone that even kings, they must approach a spiritual master in order to gain knowledge of the soul and the process of reincarnation. So we should listen learn from this soul and reincarnation from a spiritual master. Okay, then he further instructs the Guna that if one fails constantly to fix one's mind on the Supreme Lord and render service to Him, he must undergo the cycle of birth and death described. It was described by Jadabharata. The condition of the mind causes the births in different types of bodies, and these bodies may be those of many different species. For when one uses the mind to understand the spiritual knowledge, he gets a higher body. And when one uses it only for obtaining material pleasure, he receives a lower body. Okay. Then he compared the mind to a flame in a lamp. Um, uh, when it flames correctly, then you will get a very nice flame like that. So the soul is also like that. The body is also like that. When you having a higher knowledge and having understanding, then you get a higher body. Then he warned the king that as long as one identifies with the material body, one must wander throughout the unlimited universe in different species of life. Therefore, the uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living being. Okay. Then he explained to the king about his past life, what happened when his mind was wavered. Okay, so Jadavarda concluded his teaching by informing the king that those who desire freedom from the cycle of reincarnation must always associate with the self-realized devotees of the Lord. So only by associating with exalted devotees can one attain the perfection of knowledge and cut to pieces the illusory association of this material world. So Jadabharata also explains the science of reincarnation very thoroughly. Then the third one, the Prabhupada gives is the story of Ajamila. So everyone knows, I hope, the story of Ajamila. So I don't want to uh, explain it again. If anybody wants to know, please let me know. So here at the time of death, Ajamila, because of his attachment to his younger son, who is called as who is named as Narayana, he started calling Narayana Narayana. Even though he lived throughout his life, he lived in a very mm, uh, unpious life. Okay, so but at the time, since he called when the Yamadutis came to take his take his life, he called his son Narayana Narayana. So since he called Narayana Narayana, that is Vishnu Nama, then Vishnu Dutis came to take him. So when the Yamadutis saw the Vishnu Dutis, they asked, "Who are you? Why are you trying to stop us?" Okay, so because they were never stopped before these Yamadudis, then Vishnu Dudis asked the Yamadudis to explain the meaning of the cycle of birth and death and asked who must enter this cycle and who must not. So they asked this question to the Yamadudis. Then Yamadudis replied that the sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, etc., they are the witnesses and the super soul. They are all witnesses of the activities of everyone. So the candidate for punishment in the cycle of birth and death are those who are confirmed by these witnesses to have deviated from their religious duties. So only these witnesses confirm that the human that soul is deviated from his religious duties. They will be again put into the cycle of birth and death. So originally the living beings exist. These are the answers of the Yamadutis. Okay. Originally the living beings exist in the spiritual world as eternal servants of the God. The living beings who desires to enjoy this material world come under the control of the modes, and according to their specific relationship with these modes, acquire suitable material bodies. So they also explained how a soul will get a material body. Okay, so that's the living entity thus transmigrates from one material body to another. The human form of life is especially valuable because only a human can understand the transcendental knowledge and that can free from the cycle of birth and death. But Ajamila was wasted his human life, so he should be taken to the cycle of birth and death. So that is why they were surprised when Vishnu Dutis came to take him. Then the Vishnu Dutis said, "One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants jokingly or for musical entertainment. This is accepted in the scriptures and by all learned scholars." So, if one chants the holy name of the Lord Krishna and then dies in an accident or is killed by a deadly animal or from disease or by weapon, one is immediately freed from having to take birth again. So, as a fire burns dry grasses to ashes, then the holy name of Krishna burns to ashes of all our karmic reactions. So, at the time of death, said the Vishnu Dutis, that Ajamila helplessly and very proudly chanted the holy name of the Lord Narayana. That chanting alone has already freed him from having to take birth again for his sinful life. So, therefore, do not try to take him to your master for punishment by another term of imprisonment in a material body. So, then Vishnu Dutas then released Ajamila from the robes of the servants of the lords of death. Then Ajamila was listening all this, so he came to his senses and, free from fear, paid his heartfelt respects to the Vishnu Dutas. Then he reflected his life. Then Ajamila then renounced his prostitute wife and journeyed to a Haridwar, a place of pilgrimage in the Himalaya mountains. There he took shelter at a Vishnu temple where he practiced bhakti yoga. Thus, Ajamila gave up his temporary body and regained his eternal spiritual form. So, here also, how to come out of this reincarnation is explained by the Vishnu Dutas. That is, even at the time of death, if we chant the holy name of the Lord, then immediately all our sins will be taken away. So these accounts stand as a classic example of how the soul transmigrates through different types of bodies under the control of the precious laws of nature. So then the next chapter is the soul's secret journey. Uh, this chapter